The early morning breeze swept across the streets of Victoria Island as Adora Obi stepped out her townhouse in Lekki Phase 1. The air carried a faint scent of sea salt and diesel from the distant port, mingling with the aroma of hibiscus flowers that adorned her garden. But none of that mattered to Adora. Her steps were slow, hesitant, as if every footfall carried secret. She was 5 months pregnant. But her husband, Emeka Obi, didn't know. Their marriage had always been stable, at least on the surface. Emeka was a senior engineer at a leading oil and gas company, highly regarded for his discipline and dedication. Adora had once been a broadcast journalist, known for her eloquence and fearless interviews. But a year ago, after a failed IVF treatment and a period of intense emotional stress, she left her job to focus on rebuilding her emotional health and her marriage. The pregnancy came as a shock, not because it was unwanted, but because it happened naturally after years of trying and countless disappointments. Yet instead of sharing the news with her husband, Adora chose silence. She wasn't ready. Emeka had become increasingly distant, absorbed in work and corporate deadlines. She feared disrupting his already fragile peace. Inside their home, the silence between them was growing like mold on a wall. That morning, after her walk, Adora returned to find a note from Emeka on the kitchen island. Out early for site inspection. Back late. Love you. It was affectionate, but mechanical. She sighed, then placed her hand over her belly. The baby stirred, a flutter, almost like tiny secrets tapping to be let out. She needed to tell someone, and there was only one person she could trust. Chioma's living room was warm and perfumed with cinnamon incense. A plate of sliced mangoes sat untouched on the table as Adora paced the room. "You need to sit down before your legs give up on you," Chioma said, patting the plush sofa beside her. Adora sank down and exhaled deeply. "Chioma, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise it stays between us." Chioma turned serious. "Of course. I'm pregnant. 5 months already. Twins." The room fell silent. Then Chioma's eyes widened in disbelief. "Twins? You're serious?" Adora. Adora nodded slowly, her voice almost a whisper. "I haven't told Emeka." Chioma's hand flew to her mouth. "Jesus. Why?" "I don't know. At first I was scared it wouldn't last. Then I kept telling myself he was too busy. And now, I don't even know how to begin. Begin by telling him before it's too late." Chioma said, voice rising. "Adora, this isn't a pimple you can conceal with makeup. You're carrying 2 children. His children. He has a right to know." Adora clenched her fists, tears forming. "I'm scared of what he'll say. What if he thinks I don't trust him? Or worse, what if he resents me for hiding it?" Chioma softened. "He might be upset at first, but he loves you. He'll come around. He deserves the truth." Adora nodded slowly, but her heart thudded in fear. She wasn't so sure. Adora stood in front of the full-length mirror in their bedroom, adjusting the loose caftan that had become her daily uniform. She placed her hands on her rounded belly and stared at her reflection. The door creaked. She turned quickly. Emeka stepped in, suitcase in hand, tie loose, shirt damp with sweat. He looked tired. "You're home early," she said, moving away from the mirror. "Inspection wrapped up faster than expected," he replied, setting down his bag. His eyes scanned the room, then rested on her briefly. She avoided his gaze, forcing a smile. "Dinner's ready," as she turned toward the kitchen. Emeka's voice halted her. "Are you okay, Ada?" She paused. "Yes. Why?" "You've been different lately. Tired, distracted. Is there something you're not telling me?" Her pulse quickened. "It's just fatigue. Maybe I caught a bug." Emeka nodded slowly, but said nothing more. That night, as they lay in bed, Her turn to the wall, him scrolling through emails. There was a distance between them that not even love could cross. And Adora realized the truth she was hiding was starting to build a wall that might soon be too high to climb. The heavy clouds rolled across the Lagos sky the next morning, a foreboding shade of gray that mirrored the weight in Adaora's chest. She stood at the sink, sipping lukewarm water between cautious breaths. Her body had become unpredictable. Nausea had returned, her ankles ached, and even the slightest movement made her feel like she was carrying the world in her womb. The twins were growing fast, and time was running out. She couldn't hide this much longer. Adora sat in a quiet room at a small, private maternity clinic tucked behind a dusty row of buildings in Yaba. The walls were painted pastel green, adorned with framed photos of smiling newborns and grateful mothers. Dr. Nkechi, a plump woman in her 50s with kind eyes, reviewed the ultrasound screen and adjusted her glasses. "You're carrying twins, yes? Everything seems fine so far, but I must say, it's rare to see a pregnancy this advanced being managed in such secrecy," she said, looking at Adora sternly. Adora stared at the monitor, watching the gentle flicker of 2 tiny heartbeats. "My husband doesn't know. I just wasn't ready to tell him." Dr. Nkechi's voice softened. "I understand, but secrets like this can be dangerous for both your marriage and your health. You need support, and you need rest." Rest. It sounded like a fantasy. "I can't stop now," Adora whispered. "I have to hold everything together until I can find the right moment." She scheduled her next appointment under a pseudonym and paid in cash. It was a risky dance she was performing, and the tempo was only accelerating. That evening, Emeka was in the study, preparing for a video presentation with clients in London. As the screen lit up, he noticed a scent in the air, ginger and lemon, Adaora's go-to mixture for nausea. He paused. In the kitchen, he found the ginger roots chopped neatly beside a steaming pot. He glanced at the sink and saw 2 pregnancy-safe supplements, folic acid and iron tablets. His heart skipped. Later, when she entered the room to collect laundry, he asked casually, "Have you been taking supplements lately?" Adora froze for a second and replied, "Just vitamins. For energy. You know I've been feeling tired." Emeka didn't press further, but the suspicion was now alive in him, whispering doubts. He remembered the time she had declined his invitations to events, the new wardrobe of oversized gowns, the refusal to travel with him to Abuja, and now the supplements. She was hiding something. One Saturday, Emeka's company hosted a cocktail party at a luxury hotel in Ikoyi. Spouses were expected to attend. He had gently encouraged Adora to come. He even bought her a simple blue dress. But that morning, Adora complained of cramps and a dizzy spell. "I just need rest," she insisted. "Please go without me." So Emeka arrived alone. Throughout the evening, colleagues asked about her absence. One of them, a woman from HR named Cynthia, commented offhandedly, "Your wife looks like she might be expecting. She'd been glowing in her pictures lately." Emeka smiled stiffly. "Really? I hadn't noticed." The comment stayed with him all night. 2 days later, Emeka walked into the bedroom while Adora was napping. Her phone, lying face up on the side table, lit up with a message from Chioma. "Chioma, clinic called, confirmed twins still healthy. I'm so relieved." Emeka stared at the message. His heart began to race. He didn't wake Adora. Instead, he walked out onto the balcony, his thoughts racing, his mind colliding with anger and confusion. Twins? She was pregnant? And Chioma knew? It wasn't just a betrayal of being kept in the dark. It was who she chose to confide in instead. Later that night, Adora woke to find Emeka unusually quiet, staring at the ceiling. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away gently. Is everything all right? She asked. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Fine, just thinking. As she drifted back to sleep, he lay awake, the image of two hidden heartbeats etched into his memory. He didn't confront her, not yet, but he would. And when he did, he wouldn't be the same man. The sun rose slowly over Lagos that morning, casting a soft golden hue over the Obi residence. Inside, Adora felt a tightening pressure across her abdomen. The twins were more active now, kicking gently, reminding her with every flutter that she was living on borrowed time. She had rehearsed a confession in her mind 100 times. Yet every night, her courage dissolved into silence. But something was about to force her hand. It was just past noon when the doorbell rang. Adora was curled up on the living room couch, with a shawl draped over her swollen form. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door to find a familiar face, one she hadn't seen in nearly 4 years. Ifioma, her cousin, the storm in her family's history. Dressed in flashy jeans, acrylic nails, and an overpowering perfume, Ifioma stepped inside uninvited, scanning the house with a sly grin. Nice place. Marriage suits you, she said, eyeing Adaora's midsection. Adaora's heart pounded. What are you doing here? Ifioma shrugged. I was in the area. Thought I'd say hi. We're family, aren't we? She paused. Twins, huh? Congratulations. The blood drained from Adaora's face. What are you talking about? Ifioma's grin widened. You think I don't know? You left a folder at Chioma's once. I saw the clinic records, 2 heartbeats, due in 8 weeks. But Emeka doesn't know, does he? Adaora's hands trembled. Ifioma, please, this is none of your business. On the contrary, Ifioma said, pulling out her phone, I think Emeka might be very interested in hearing from me. But lucky for you, I'm not the vindictive type. Unless I'm provoked. Her voice dropped to a hiss. 500,000. Cash. By Friday. Or I tell your loving husband everything. Adora blinked in disbelief. You're blackmailing me? No. Ifioma said smoothly. I'm offering you peace. That evening, Adora sat on the edge of bed, her mind racing. She couldn't ask Chioma for the money again, not after the last favor. She couldn't withdraw that much without Emeka noticing. She considered confessing everything right then, right there, but Emeka walked in looking exhausted. His phone buzzed nonstop. The last thing she wanted was to make him angrier or more distant. So she remained silent. Later that night, she left an envelope with cash at a pharmacy near Ifioma's address, per instructions. But she knew this wouldn't be the end. People like Ifioma never stopped at one demand. At work, Emeka couldn't focus. He kept replaying Chioma's message in his head. Something was off. Everything was off. He even noticed that Adora now walked with more caution, as though every movement required calculation. So he decided to act. He contacted a maid agency and hired a soft-spoken domestic helper named Ngozi, asking her discreetly to keep the house tidy and look out for anything unusual. A week into the job, Ngozi knocked on a study door with a quiet voice. Sir, sorry to disturb, but I found these under Madam's pillow. She handed him 2 ultrasound prints. Twin fetuses, labeled Baby A and Baby B, both with Adaora's name in the corner. The world tilted. That night, Emeka came home with a quiet rage beneath the surface. At dinner, Adora tried to act normal, talking about a new recipe, asking about his work. Emeka nodded, smiled, said little, but his mind boiled. He couldn't sleep. By 2 a.m., he stood by the bedroom window, watching Adaora's silhouette under the moonlight. Why didn't you tell me? He asked suddenly, his voice cold. Adora turned, startled. What? You're pregnant. With twins. How long were you planning to keep lying to me? Silence. Then her eyes welled with tears. I wanted to. I just didn't know how. I was scared. Scared of me, he snapped. No, she whispered. Scared of losing everything. He stared at her, betrayal written across his face. She stepped forward. I love you, Emeka. I just didn't know how to say it without ruining what we have. What we have, he repeated bitterly, is now built on a lie. He walked out of the room. And for the first time in their marriage, Adora felt the icy chasm of separation yawning between them. The rain poured down heavily the next morning, casting a gray gloom over the Obi residence. Adora sat alone in the living room, watching the drops trail down the window pane like tears on glass. Her eyes were puffy from crying. Her body felt heavier than ever, not just from pregnancy, but from the crushing silence in her home. Emeka had not come back to the bedroom. He hadn't even eaten. She'd broken his trust, and now she was losing him. Chioma arrived unannounced that afternoon, bringing fruit juice and warm jollof rice. You look like you haven't slept in days, she said, pulling Adora into an embrace. I think I've lost him, Adora whispered, her voice cracking. Chioma pulled back, eyes sharp. Then fight for him. But don't forget, you didn't hide this to be cruel. You were terrified. There's a difference. I feel almost blackmailing me, Adora said quietly. What? Chioma's voice rose. What did she want? 500,000. I gave it to her. She says she's done, but I don't trust her. Chioma was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up. If Emeka finds out about this part, and you haven't told him first, it'll be worse than the pregnancy. You need to talk to him now. Meanwhile, Emeka sat in his parked car outside his office in Victoria Island, hands gripping the steering wheel. He barely slept. He replayed their arguments over and over. The secrecy, the lies, but there was one image he couldn't shake, the ultrasound pictures. 2 beating hearts. His children. He hadn't even known they existed. He had loved Adora for years. They had survived infertility, IVF failures, hospital bills, therapy. And now, this. A part of him wanted to storm home and demand more answers. But another part of him, the deeper, wounded part, just wanted to run. Instead, he drove to the hospital whose logo appeared on the ultrasound documents. Emeka sat stiffly in the consultation room, facing Dr. Nkechi. She's been coming here under a different name, the doctor admitted, reluctantly. I can't violate patient confidentiality, but I will say this. She's done everything to protect those babies. She's been cautious, consistent, and careful. Emeka stared at the wall, trying to steady himself. Twins, he murmured. We wanted children for so long. And now they're coming. And she thought I couldn't handle it. Dr. Nkechi nodded gently. Sometimes fear speaks louder than love. But that doesn't mean the love wasn't real. That evening, Emeka returned home quietly. Adora, still in her maternity gown, stood near the dining table, visibly shaken when she saw him. He didn't speak at first. Finally, he said, I went to the clinic. Her breath caught. I know everything now. The name you used. The appointment logs. The due date. Adora's eyes filled with tears. I wanted to tell you 100 times. I wanted the right moment, but there never was one. You should have trusted me, he said, voice raw. I'm not perfect, but I would have stood by you. I know, she whispered. I failed you. He sat down heavily. And what about Ifeoma? Adora froze. You know? I had Ngozi followed. She saw someone picking up an envelope. We traced her. You gave her money. Adora sat down slowly. I didn't know what else to do. She threatened to tell you everything. I thought it would destroy what little we had left. Emeka didn't respond for a long time. Then he stood. "We're having twins, Adora. Our twins. That's not something I want to discover from anyone else but you." She sobbed. "Please forgive me." He nodded. "I don't know if I can forgive you tonight, but I'll be here in the morning." And with that, he walked away, not in rage, but in pain. At 3 a.m., Emeka woke to the sound of something crashing in the hallway. He rushed out to find Adora on the floor, clutching her stomach, tears streaming down her face. "Emeka!" she gasped. "Something's wrong." He swept her into his arms and carried her to the car without hesitation. Blood was trickling down her leg. In that moment, all anger vanished. Only fear remained. The ambulance lights flashed like sirens in Emeka's soul as they pulled into the emergency bay of the hospital. He leapt from the car, cradling Adora, his voice hoarse as he shouted for help. "Please, she's pregnant. Twins. She's bleeding." Nurses rushed toward them with a stretcher. Adora's eyes fluttered open briefly, filled with pain and fear. "Don't let anything happen to them," she whispered. "Promise me." Emeka squeezed her hand. "Nothing will happen. I won't let it." But he wasn't sure he believed himself. For 4 agonizing hours, Emeka paced the hallway outside the maternity unit. He hadn't prayed in years, but tonight he did, desperately, silently, over and over. Visions of life without Adora, without the children he hadn't even met, clouded his mind. Dr. Nkechi finally emerged, removing her gloves, her expression grave but calm. "She's stable now. The twins are safe for now. But she has to rest. Strict bed rest. Emeka." Her blood pressure spiked from stress. Emeka's knees nearly gave out. "She's asking for you," the doctor added gently. Adora looked small against the white sheets, her face pale, her hair matted to her forehead. But when she saw Emeka, her lips trembled into a faint smile. "You stayed," she whispered. He sat beside her, taking her hand gently. "I never left." She wept softly. "I was so scared. I thought I'd lose everything." "I know," he said, "and maybe I haven't made it easy. I've been absent in ways you never deserved." Adora shook her head. "Don't say that. I lied to you. I should have trusted you." "You should have," he agreed, squeezing her hand tighter. "But maybe I gave you a reason not to." For the first time in months, they didn't hide behind silence. They spoke about the infertility, the strain, the fear, the love that had dimmed but never died. They cried. And somewhere in that room, something fractured between them was slowly mending. 3 days later, Chioma arrived at the hospital with fresh juice and a fierce expression. "Guess who showed up at my apartment again?" she said. Adaora's stomach twisted. "I, Fioma?" Chioma nodded. She wanted more money, threatened to go to the blogs. Emeka, who had been gently massaging Adaora's feet, looked up. "She won't." He stood and picked up his phone. "I had someone dig into her background. She has 2 warrants for petty fraud in Port Harcourt. If she so much as breathes on us again, she's going straight to jail." Adora blinked. You did all that?" He nodded. "I'm protecting my family now. No more secrets. No more shame." Back home, the atmosphere shifted. Emeka arranged for a private nurse. Chioma moved in temporarily to help. Emeka took a short leave from work. He was different now, present, patient, gentle. Every evening, he read baby books aloud, even when Adora teased him. He massaged her feet, sat through doctor's appointments, and counted down the days with anticipation and growing affection. Their love no longer felt like a delicate truce. It was becoming a fortress. One evening, as he tucked her in, Adora looked up at him. "I thought I had ruined everything." "You gave me 2 lives," he said. Nothing could ruin that. Just as they began to breathe, a letter arrived at their doorstep. There was no return address. Inside, a photograph. Grainy, taken from a distance. Emeka, weeks ago, at a bar in Abuja with an unfamiliar woman. Adora stared at it. The old panic returned. Emeka's face darkened. She was a colleague. We were waiting for a client. That's all it was. Adora met his eyes, searching for a trace of guilt. He held her gaze, steady and unflinching. I have nothing to hide. Not anymore. But the seeds of doubt had been planted, and the final storm hadn't yet arrived. The atmosphere was electric with tension. Adora sat silently on the edge of the bed, her eyes fixed on the grainy photograph in her hand, the image of Emeka seated beside a woman in Abuja. He had sworn there was nothing to it. A colleague, a meeting. But after everything they had endured, after the secrets, the lies, the near miscarriage, could she afford to blindly believe again? The next few days were tense. Emeka noticed a shift, the way Adora held back, the way her responses grew shorter, her voice tighter. Are we doing this again? He asked one evening, holding up the photo. Do you really think after all we've been through I'd betray you now? Adeora's silence said everything. I brought her in, he continued, pulling out a contact card. Her name is Fola. She's married. Her husband owns the restaurant we met at. Here, call her. He placed a card in front of her. Adora stared at it. I won't believe you, she whispered. But trust once broken. Then let me rebuild it, one brick at a time. They stood in silence, facing one another across the fragile ruins of mistrust. But then everything changed. It started with a dull cramp in Adeora's lower back at 3:12 a.m. She thought it was a false alarm, Braxton Hicks, like before. But the pain returned in sharp, unrelenting waves. Within the hour, Emeka was racing down the third mainland bridge, hazard lights flashing, his heart pounding harder than the rain on his windshield. At the hospital, Adora was rushed into delivery. Time warped. The doctor spoke in clipped phrases. Nurses darted between machines. The beeping of fetal monitors echoed through the sterile room. The first twin, a girl, arrived quickly, but the second was breech. Panic surged. Emeka waited outside, pacing, praying, palms soaked with sweat. Then finally, two cries. One louder, the other softer but steady. The door opened. You have two healthy girls, the nurse announced with a tired smile. You're a father, sir. In the recovery room, Adora held the twins, wrapped in pink. Emeka sat beside her, his arm around her shoulder, staring at the small faces they had created. She looks like you, he whispered, pointing to the second baby. No, Adora smiled. She has your forehead. Poor child. They laughed, tired, relieved, overwhelmed. Chioma arrived the next morning with gifts, tears, and too many pictures. Even Emeka's skeptical mother, who had once doubted Adeora's strength, called from the village in joyful disbelief. They named the twins. Chimamanda, my God will never fail me. Adan, daughter of her mother. Weeks later, as Adora rocked the twins in their nursery, Emeka walked in with a package in his hand. This came in the mail. No name. No return address. She opened it. Inside, a letter from Ifioma. I'm leaving the country. I see now I was wrong. Jealousy rotted me. Forgive me if you can. You're a better woman than I ever was. Enclosed was a photograph of Adora as a child, one she thought was lost forever, with her late father, smiling on his old farm. Adora stared at it for a long time, then folded it gently. I forgive her, she said softly. Not for Ifioma. For herself. On the balcony that evening, Emeka held both daughters in his arms as Adora leaned against his side. The sky turned from gold to indigo, the city lights blinking in rhythm with the quiet breathing of their girls. "We made it," Adora said. "We're making it," he corrected. "Every day, one truth at a time." They stood there in silence, two souls bound not by perfection, but by the scars they had chosen to heal together. And for the first time in a long time, Adora didn't feel like she was hiding anymore. She felt whole,